Now we're going to be coloring Mr. Fox, and we will be using YR09, YR16, E19, C1, W7, and 110 Special Black. And we're going to start with the orange part of his body. We're going to start with YR16, and we're going to circle in our color on his head. And you're going to go over the leading edge, or the edge where you've left off coloring. You're going to go back and circle over, and this is how you keep from getting streaks or uneven colored areas. So we're circling these in. And now we're going to come in with our YR09, and we're going to flick where we want to have shadows. So you're going to flick away from the most shaded area, because the concentration of your color is going to be where you first put that tip of your pen down. And feel free to turn your paper to whatever's most comfortable for you, so that you're able to get your flicking going with the growth direction of the fur. And then we're going to come in with the E19, and just where you want the darkest shadow to be, you're going to gently flick in with just the very tip of your marker some of that E19 and blend it back down into the bottom with the E1 or the YR16. So right underneath the edge of his hair, and we're going to flick that into the base. Now we're going to come in and we're going to color just right around his eye, which is a really tiny area here, so we'll use just the very tip of our marker. Come in with the YR09. Blend that in with the YR16, and then we're going to come back in here under his eye and color in with the YR16, again circling in the base color, flicking in the YR09 in the areas where we want shadow. Blending that in with the YR16, and then adding the E19 just where we want the very darkest shadow. And then blending it in again with the YR16. And now we're going to move on to the body here, and we're using the YR16 again. Same method, we're going to circle in this base color. Use the very tip of your pen in the little areas, and then you can use the side to cover large areas. I like to work in sections on the drawing so that you keep your ink wet so that you get the best blending. In this case, his whole body is one section here. And as I'm going back and you see me sort of circling back over areas where I've already colored, That's what they call keeping your leading edge wet, because you're going back. And this prevents the streaking and the uneven color. We're going to use our tip down here toward the end of the tail because we've got his legs behind the tail here, and then we have the white tip on his tail. We want to keep our orange out of that white tail. Okay, and then we're going to come in with our YR09, and anywhere we want shadows, we're going to flick that in with the direction of the hair growth. Come back in with your YR16, flick that back down into the base color. You can add a little bit of the YR09 on the tips of the fur if you want to add a little bit of shadow on the tips of the fur. Again, just try to make sure that your flicking follows the pattern of the hair growth. And again, feel free to move your paper around so that it's more comfortable for you to flick. If you like to flick toward you or away from you, don't be afraid to move your papers around. Add just a little bit of the YR09 down on the tips here where the white tip of the tail is. It'll help emphasize that white tip. And then you come back in with your E19, and just in the areas where you want your darkest shadow under his arm here, we're going to flick that in there, blend it back down again with that YR16. And under the edge of the tail here. Arm that's back behind here. I have a little bit more shadow there. And I might even go back and add just a little bit of the E19 right where that tail turns white again. That'll help give it a little more dimension there and set it apart from the orange part of the tail. Okay, and now we've gotten the orange part of the fox done. We're going to start on the black areas of the fox, so his ears and his arms and his feet. And for that we're going to use the W7 and the 110 Special Black. We're going to start by circling in with the W7 in the areas where we want to see this black tone on the fox, the tips of his ears. And then we're going to come back in with our 110 Special Black and flick in where we want the darkest shadows. And it's going to be hard to see there on your screen because it's a very subtle color change. And we're going to move on to an arm here. Again, circle in the W7. Taking your 110 black, flicking that in where you want your shadows, along the bottom edge of the arm and where the fur connects to the arm. with your 110 black again. Just cast your shadows with it and blend it in with the flick with your W7. You're repeating the same process on each leg. The only thing that changes is the placement of that 110 special black by where you want your shadows. Got his little foot peeking out here behind his tail. And that's how you color the dark areas of your fox. And next we're going to move on to adding a shadow to the white areas of your fox. In this case I'm going to use the C1 because it adds just a gentle shadow. You won't probably be able to see it on your screen there. Anywhere you'd want to cast a shadow on the white area of the fox, you're going to flick that C1 in. And it's going to leave just a subtle shadow on that white. So underneath the mouth, bottom edge of the nose, and the tips of the fur. And there we have Mr. Fox.